Chainsaw Man is raw energy. It's fast-paced with a page-rifling story and equally frenetic characters, and the cherry on top that turns the knobs to 11 and puts the action in overdrive is the art. It's wild, it's gorgeous, its energy encapsulated in edgy art, eagerly edifying readers with its efflux of eerie imagery. It's fucking awesome! But why? There's no doubt that Tatsuki Fujimoto is one of the greatest artists to step onto the comic scene in the past decade. Knowing he began the serialization of Chainsaw Man at only 25 years of age, you might be surprised to hear that he had already illustrated 8 other published manga before his current series put him on the map. His first published work dating as far back as 2011, where at the age of 18 he created the one-shot Niwa 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 Niwatori ga Ita, or There Were Two Chickens in the Garden, for Jump Square, for which he was nominated in its December Monthly Award. Fujimoto continued to release one-shot after one-shot over the next 5 years until creating his first major serialized work, Fire Punch, in 2016. Although you can clearly see how Fujimoto's art continued to evolve and improve over each project, there's one particular quirk to his style that has prevailed throughout his entire career. It's loose. And there might be a practical reason for that. If you've ever looked into how a weekly shonen manga gets made, you probably already know that time is of the essence. The mainstream Japanese manga industry is all about speed. New chapters have to be released week after week, with artists working grueling hours and sleepless nights to ensure that they meet their deadlines.
There's 3 questions that artists would always ask each other when we go out drinking. And it would be, what are the 3, pick these 3 things in order of importance. And it was sleep, food, sex. Can you guess what people would say?
Sleep number 1.
100%. And then it would depend on the person. The other thing. Yeah, but it was always sleep. It was always sleep, and people always looked tired as shit. And I was tired as shit too. I had health complications coming from serializing at that pace because I didn't walk. I woke up, went to my desk and drew.
If you've ever read Bakuman, a manga about what it's like working for Shonen Jump, you'd know that it's imperative to meet your deadlines if you want to keep your readership, let alone your job. Unless you're Yoshihiro Togashi. Rest up, King. So of course, artists have had to find shortcuts to speed up their drawing process in order to meet these deadlines and get at least a few hours of sleep. And for many mangaka of the mid to late 20th century, the key to this speed was reducing your pencil mileage. Just like how a car degrades with increasing mileage, so too does the artist. Having to draw more lines to render more detail not only means that a finished image takes much longer to produce, but also makes it that much more exhausting to complete. The idea being that if you produce an image using the least amount of lines possible, you reduce your pencil mileage, allowing you to become a more efficient artist. So for mangaka of the likes of Osamu Tezuka, Rumiko Takahashi, Mitsuru Adachi, and Akira Toriyama, this meant cutting down on hatching to define form shadows and employing large areas of negative space, as well as leaving your illustrations relatively simple and cartoony, but with enough polish and accuracy to maintain appeal. For much of their work, the lines are smooth and confident, likely laid out with quick single strokes. The characters, constructed of easy-to-draw primitive shapes, always maintain a consistent volume. However, while many artists try to be as polished as possible in order to stay publishable, you'll often find that momentum and raw energy are lost. Do you ever find that when you draw something in pencil, the scratchy organic lines you've laid down feel so full of life, only for that sense of liveliness to be stripped away once it's inked? It's because the more precisely you lay down those final lines, the stiffer your image becomes.
これなんかは小走り程度のスピード感で書く。それをスーって遅いスピードでゆっくり引いたりなんかすると、それはゆっくりした動きになるんですよ。もうなんかね、あれは本当不思議ですよね。
This is where Chainsaw Man comes in. Since being as polished as possible while also disregarding pencil mileage increases the time needed to produce an image, Fujimoto does away with precision entirely. His lines are organic and at times chaotic, going as far as to render characters entirely in speed lines to push the sense of motion. While many artists restrict their work through polished stiffness, it's this very looseness that adds that level of frenzy that we just can't get enough of. Fujimoto's contemporary, Gege Akutani, is another artist that favors the energy of looseness over polish. This is something that Studio Mappa took into consideration for Jujutsu Kaisen's anime adaptation, translating this high energy through well-choreographed movement and snappy action. Much like how their respective anime captures that blazing sense of motion through animation, the organic illustrations of the manga let you feel how fast these characters are going. Every punch, every kick, every slice feels like it's rushing across the page at lightning speed. This isn't to say that Tatsuki Fujimoto can't render out some of the most gorgeous and polished manga panels put to Bristol board. It's the fact that his use of refined illustration and wild organic line work is absolutely methodical. He knows how to use each technique for effect, and it's this knowledge that pushes his works to new heights. Speaking of using a technique for effect, we'd be amiss not to bring up Chainsaw Man's color pages. I guarantee that if you walk into any bookstore selling manga, the first thing you might notice is the Chainsaw Man section. These covers are electric. The use of vibrant reds, blues, and greens scream at you like the whirring rev of a chainsaw engine, not to mention how beautifully they're designed, each highlighting either a dedicated character or the climax of the volume. Having majored in Western painting at Yamagata's Tohoku University of Art and Design, it's no wonder why Fujimoto has such a command of color theory. From the cold blue hues used to highlight Aki's steely demeanor to Makima's eerily controlling hot reds, you get the sense that color is used to exemplify both character traits and emotions. This method is also used in the official colored versions put out by Shueisha, which uses color schemes inspired by Fujimoto's artistry. While most mangaka use local color to compose their pages, Chainsaw Man's colored version and in turn Fujimoto's color spreads opt to instead color things unconventionally to emphasize emotional beats. The Chainsaw Devil's chaotic nature is depicted through violent vibrance, while romantic scenes are bathed in soothing pinks. Although this unfortunately isn't reflected in the anime adaptation, Mappa does a good job capturing the softer, subtler coloring Fujimoto uses for his more solemn moments, which end up giving the show a much more cinematic quality as opposed to the manga's poppy aesthetic. And then there's the part of comics that hardly anyone pays any attention to. In fact, I'd wager that this nearly invisible art is the part of comics that we interact with the most, yet barely consider when we talk about the craftsmanship of any particular work. And it's something that Fujimoto is an abject master at. The lettering. The lettering absolutely makes or breaks a comic. Just think of any time you've seen a comic with poor digital lettering that immediately turns you off because the font choice feels almost uncanny. Or how in the age of post-processed digital art, it becomes easy to drop in unconsidered effects lettering that clashes with the illustrations. Digital font-based lettering can be really ugly, and can even take away from a work if it doesn't mesh with the art that accompanies it. Chainsaw Man does not have this issue. The sound effects lettering in Chainsaw Man is absolutely phenomenal, and instead of being slapped on top digitally like many modern American comics, Fujimoto takes the care to draw it himself. And it shows just how much drawing your own lettering can enhance your pages. The onomatopoeia not only feels like it belongs, but it also is wonderfully incorporated into every single action scene. Much like how in film, camera tilts and movement tracking can help accentuate the action, the lettering in Chainsaw Man enhances the visuals by being part of the action. If something is whizzing by at Mach speed, that whiz sound effect is drawn to look as if it's whizzing at Mach speed. The sharp plink of a devil finger against Aki's hilt reflects the tinny timbre of keratin against steel, while the sound effect for Katana Man's vicious slash against the air reflects the airy vacuum left behind by his swing. If there's anything that defines Chainsaw Man and Fujimoto's art in general, it's how often it breaks convention. Both as an illustrator and as a storyteller, Tatsuki Fujimoto is undoubtedly unique. And it's unique voices like these that we are in desperate need of today, where mass appeal corporate products written by committees proliferate our media. The comics medium as a whole is one of the few harbingers of raw, unfiltered creativity where creatives are able to let their ideas run wild. And it's this very sense of freedom that makes artists like Tatsuki Fujimoto and series like Chainsaw Man so special. Hey, thanks for sticking through to the end. My original plan was to release a video essay followed by a drawing tutorial, but then the Chainsaw Man anime came out and I just, couldn't resist making this video. If you have any ideas for things that you'd like to learn how to draw or anime and manga that I should talk about, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'll see you next time, and until then, keep drawing.